Okay, there were these tweets, a couple of tweets I saw a week ago. I think it was around about a week ago. And I know in internet time, a week ago is like 4 billion centuries, and you can dust up the tweets and move a little bit of pottery about, towards the side, and Tony Robinson appears from the tomb and it haunts your nightmares. Tony Robinson, by the way, is totally alive and played Baldric in Blackadder. But my point is, a week is a long time, but I sat on it and I thought, okay, let's not post it. What's the point? What's the point in posting this? But then I kept thinking about like what I would say and what I would want to say and what I would like to say. And so ultimately, I can't leave it alone. I know I should and I'd like to, but I won't, and I'm not going to leave this alone. I'm going to talk about it because it kind of annoyed me and bugged me a little bit. Not too much, but a little bit. But I want to preface this by saying that I'm going to be talking about game developers in this video. And look, I'm not a game developer. I've never done game development. I don't really know much about it. I know a couple of people who do like low tier game development. Aside from that, I really don't know anything about it. And I am going to be talking out my ass. I am going to be an armchair developer in this situation, but sort of just putting my 2 cents on the situation. But I do want to say that I do hugely appreciate and respect what game developers do. I do not agree. I don't agree with anything beyond a standard work week for game developers. I think they should do what they are physically and mentally capable of. I think that crunch is an absolutely disgusting and despicable notion, and I think that's all absolutely terrible. And game developers should have a lot more respect than they do and should be treated professionally with more respect than they currently are. However, takes like this drive me crazy, and this obviously when it comes to bad game development, I'm going to be talking about Halo Infinite, I'm going to be talking about 343 kind of drive me crazy, and specifically when I see the standard set so differently by other game developers, it's so difficult to see 343 sort of do what they're doing and behave in the way that they are, and then to have like the balls to go out on social media and be like, hey, you don't know how tough it is when all these other developers are just completely embarrassing you right now. It's annoying, it's frustrating. So I'm going to show you these tweets that I found. So last week, the first one I found, and I had to like this to remember what it was, is from XLR8, and this is a guy who posts a lot of Halo content. Every AAA dev I've ever met, producing games is more challenging and stressful than it's ever been. It's rewarding, but it takes an astronomical amount of work. Dude on Twitter who's never touched development in his life. Actually, it's not. See, back then when, and ellipses. Now, obviously, this is referring to the armchair developers I was talking about. They can be annoying. I will admit that armchair developers can be quite annoying, but I think this is a little bit condescending, and I'm going to get back to this. This isn't as important as the core of the video that I'm about to talk about, but it within it has a very core element as to what I want to talk about in this video, and as you can see, he clarifies he's not specifically talking about Halo Infinite, but this applies to Halo Infinite in a big way, and he does post Halo Infinite content, and as such, I saw a lot of the comments were talking about Unyshek. Unyshek apparently had done a post at a similar time to this, and they thought that it was intrinsically linked to this one, so I decided to head on to Unyshek's page, and I found this at the same time, and so yes, it does very much relate. I don't know which one came first. August 11th 2022, 6:55 p.m, 7:12 p.m, August 14th 2022, so this one came first, so it could well have been in response to it. So here we go. This is Unyshek. For anyone who doesn't know, Unyshek works for 343, the senior community manager at 343 Industry, in a large way in charge of a lot of the stuff you see in Halo Infinite, for better or for worse, and definitely for worse. So John Unyshek, why is it harder to make games these days? Too long didn't read. The expectations and legal requirements for games has increased. A helpful list of examples, I can't read tonight, of examples below, Okay, well, this is the first bit of real proper transparency we've seen from 343, so I can't help but appreciate this and kind of be a little bit sad that this is the first tangible, real development log that we've got from the game, which is honestly, I think, the level of transparency that we should be receiving from 343 if they're going to wave their dick around so much. So this is a list of things that they have had to look into recently. I will say, we're going to be looking at this purely analytically, and it's easy to look at a list like this connected to the caption and say to yourself, wow, this is just a small thing that they're having to deal with now. Imagine what it's like all the time if there's just this, all of this stuff is just small potatoes to this, guys. Could be just one day. You don't know that. This could be across the span of an entire year. This could be everything that they have to deal with. I mean, we know it isn't based on the nature of what's on there, but, there's no context for it. This could be a couple of months of work for these guys. Excuse me. So let's have a look at the list. This is where my issue stems, by the way. So here we go. 200 radio expectations and legal requirements for games has increased. I'm going to move myself because we can't piss off. As those expectations requirements increase, so does the complexity of the systems that support achieving them. Increased visual fidelity. So let's nitpick every one of these. Increased visual fidelity, 8K plus asset creation, ultra-wide RTX, etc. Now, immediately, right from the get-go, I'm not going to claim to know this. I'm not going to claim to understand exactly how this works because I don't. I have no idea how all of this works. However, and again, this is really, I'm throwing a lot of caution to the wind here because I am just going to spout what is probably bollocks. But what a lot of people get confused with is exactly what resolution means. I think a lot of people think resolution means better graphics in a sense that more stuff and more detailed worlds and more complexity. Resolution refers to how clear the image is. It refers to how there's nothing more to it. Resolution is purely clarity. It's how clear the image is. So in a video game, what that means is the image is like less blurry. There's just more. It's clearer. It's hard to explain. I guess an example would be in the 7th gen where we weren't running at 4K. We were running at between either 720 or 1080. If you look at games back then, they were nowhere near as clear as they are now. Obviously, I know there's a lot of, whoa, no, it didn't look that bad, but then you go back to it and it actually really does look very blurry. What we have now with 4K looks a lot clearer and just way better in general, but what they had to do back then was just fill the screen with assets and textures and text and textures, because if they didn't, then the image would be so low resolution and so fuzzy that it wouldn't look very detailed and interesting and very palatable, first and foremost. So they would have to chuck a bunch of assets in to make up for a lack of texture, and a great example of that is Halo 4 to Halo 5. If you look at 4 to 5 is a clearer, crisper image, but there aren't as many just foliage and goofy lighting and crazy little tiny rocks and stuff here and there, and the sky isn't made of 15,000 different colors and a bunch of lens flares just coming across your face that you can't actually see clearly. Another example of a game that did this was Hitman Absolution to Hitman, the rebooted trilogy that they did after that. The rebooted trilogy was just completely clear, clarity, and that really works for a game like Hitman. I think a game where the detail of the world is very important. But if you look at Absolution, again, it was lots of goofy lens flares and stuff like that, which really I think doesn't work too well for a stealth game. So clarity is what resolution is, which is why this confuses me a little bit, because as a filmmaker, when I render in 4K, when I throw it into Premiere and then I render it in 4K, what I do is I press a button and then the system renders that in a clearer image for me, depending on the equipment that I used. What it doesn't do is demand that I add things into the scene. You know, it doesn't go, hey, this is a shot of a garden. I'm going to need you to put a big parasol in there, and I'm going to need you to put a bucket in there and some toys just to make give you a higher resolution. No, what it does is render it with a clearer image. Again, you know, video game development would be different. You're creating the world. You're not just showing the world. So I do understand, you know, that the whole process of it will be a bit different. But what really confuses me is it not just technology that's doing that for you? I genuinely don't know. The only difference when it comes to filmmaking between rendering in 1080 and 4K is how long it takes to render. And yes, that can be incredibly annoying because you kind of feel an impetus to be there during the rendering process, and therefore you're there longer at the office, and that really sucks. That genuinely would really suck for you. But I feel like, you know, the reason we can do things like 8K and 4K now is not because like we suddenly have decided to put the effort into 8K and 4K. It's because the technology is there to create those things for us. You know, it's not us creating these things, isn't the systems that we use creating these things. I don't know. Again, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure when it comes to that. But yeah, I feel like that is something that is done. In terms of filmmaking, it's something that's done for you. Improved online experience, dedicated servers, online security, etc. Guys, come on. We are on the second thing. I even bumped my mic. We are on the second thing, and it's already something that every fucking online video game has. You are acting as though you are the only people making online games. Dedicated servers have existed for goddamn eons. Oh my god. It's not new. Dedicated servers aren't new. Online security should not be new. Unfortunately, somehow that's like a bragging right. You know, when you open Warzone now, or Modern Warfare, you know, in terms of me, because I'm playing Modern Warfare, you get the big ricochet online security splash screen. But they're all doing it. You're not the only game doing it. You know, how does this excuse your game taking longer to make than other online games when this is something that they all have to do, dude? I think Bad Company 2... or at least Battlefield 3 had dedicated servers, and they all have online security. You know, you are not unique with this. Building more platforms, additional build infrastructure, game security. Again, we're seeing game security. You really could have bumped that into the online experience. Additional builds, I think this, if I'm not mistaken, is referring to them having to build on the Xbox One as well. And yes, okay, that might be tougher. I think this falls into another 8K situation though. I feel like if you have the benchmark as the Series X version, can you not just scale down to the Xbox One version? And I know that creates more work for you, but again, you're not the only people doing this. I don't know why you continue to act as though you're the only people doing all of this. You know, Call of Duty is still making games for the Xbox One. Battlefield still they're still making Battlefield games for the Xbox One. Fortnite runs for every platform under the sun. Apex Legends, these are all these games, and some of the great. Apex Legends is a phenomenal game, and they're all doing this. It's all there for them too. You know, they have to do it too. Apex Legends is constantly developed on. Fortnite, they have new events constantly. Like, that game changes all the time. You know, why is it so crazy that you will be able to keep up? And of course, infrastructure is built into all of that as well. Better support for the game's ecosystem, crossplay, cross progression, etc. Dude. Cross progression? What cross progression? What cross progression? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? The game doesn't have progression. There's no progression in Infinite. You got rid of it. You got rid of progression and replaced it with a stinky battle pass. No one asked you for the battle pass. If it's so much effort, hold on. No one sat there and went, "Hey, bro, what's up, bro? Hey, how's it going, bro? How's it going?" Do you know what? Let me tell you this. I don't want to earn skins and armor and camo and the color of my Spartan in game. I don't want to earn that. I want a battle pass. I want a straight up battle pass. If they don't give me a battle pass, I'm not interested. I hear you, bro. Battle pass for the win. No one was saying that. No one asked for a battle pass in Halo. You put it in to make more money. You know, if you don't want to do it, if it's too much effort for you, take that shit out and put a proper progression system in. And then you can be taxed on moving it from place to place to place. Then that counts. That doesn't count. There's no progression. Okay, yeah, there's campaign. But, not to sound like a dick, but who's carrying their campaign from system to system to system? I mean, come on, dude. It's a 5-hour long campaign. You know, at least if there were a proper progression system, it would make sense that in like a couple of years' time, in the span of a couple of years, I'm going to go to a friend's house and they might only have a PC, they might not have an Xbox. Cool, I can boot up. That is a really cool system. I like that. I can just log in and have my rank right there. I love the future sometimes. It's really cool. You don't have one, though. There isn't a rank in this game. There's no progression in this game. So what are you bringing over? That's a lie. It's a straight up lie. I can't believe that. I really can't believe that. Now, crossplay, admittedly, yes, I will concede that. Crossplay is a great new thing. It is very integral to Infinite, and what's very important to Infinite right now is keeping that player count up, and crossplay is doing that. I know a lot of people moan about crossplay, saying, I shouldn't have to play with PC players. You know what, dude, it's a video game. Don't get your knickers in a twist. Just play the game, have fun with it, and crossplay helps, keep the player count up. So that is a good thing, and I do understand that crossplay does make the development process harder. So I will concede that. That is very true. Faster cadence of updates, balance changes. What? Oh my god. Oh wow. It's the end of the day. I can't even process that. Oh, okay. Balance changes, hotfixes. Your game is notorious for being slow with rolling out hotfixes. Your game is notorious for just conceding to being buggy and broken, and you're gonna say that you take longer doing things with this game and working with this game than other developers because you have to create hotfixes? You spent 6 years on this game. You spent 6 years on this game. 6 years. 6 years. And you're going to say that you need more time than other people to fix bugs in the game that took like 3 times as long as the average shooter takes to make, or let's say twice as long. I mean, there were 5 Call of Duty games in between, the space of Halo 5 and Infinite, but yeah, let's just say 2 extra games. You took longer than anyone else, and you're going to say that you need more time than other people to fix your game because it's in such a sorry state. And you think this makes your development acceptable more so than anyone else's. And that we should just shut up and be okay because you take so fucking long to do everything. But you need balance changes and hotfixes. Do you remember World War II? Do you remember the state that World War II launched in? I liked it, but for a lot of people, they didn't like it. Within 8 months, they had that game completely fixed, and it was considered, like a top-tier Call of Duty game, and everybody loved it. You can say the same for every Battlefield game that comes out. When 4 came out, it was very broken and buggy and busted. They fixed it in 4 months, and it was running great, after that. And again, they're going to say, oh, well, yeah, but it's different now. It's 2022. You know what? That game was way bigger than this one, a far bigger game than this one, and I don't care what you have to say, but it was a bigger game. New laws, I'm just going to move on because I can't. 6 years you spent on this game. Every game has hotfixes.
Every multiplayer game has that. Ask Capcom, ask any fighting game developer. New laws, regulations, which change all the time across various countries. Now, okay, I don't know anything about this, but I do know that bureaucracy does really cripple creativity, so I will give you that. That probably is a lot worse. The red tape is probably an absolute disaster at the moment. You honestly try launching a game in Australia at the moment. It's very difficult. New tools need to be made to support all this additional work. All this additional work, dude. What additional work? Were you not working on hot fixes and balance changes prior to this list? Did you not have dedicated servers prior to this list? Were you not working in 8K prior to this list? What do you mean additional work? Who are you adding to the team? Who are you adding? Were you not working on all of this from the very get-go? Am I losing my mind? What do you mean adding people to the team? And maybe you wouldn't have to add people to the team if you didn't use contract employees all the time. And now, look, I understand, I think this is a Microsoft issue, but look, it's still not acceptable, regardless of whether it's 343 or Microsoft. This shit isn't acceptable. It's not okay that you should be telling me in the reasons for, us to back off from our criticism that, we need to hire more people. Yeah, you do. You really do. Full-time employees who don't keep leaving constantly, because that's what happens with 343. New processes need to be created to ensure these intricate new additions are executed properly. Well, look, I mean, is that not just you're just regurgitating shit? We're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bullet points down. You're already just like, yeah, so this, but this again, because it's difficult. We're really at that point. This is supposed to be your big, be-all and end-all, guys, settle down, look at all the stuff we have to do statement. And 7 bullet points in, you're saying, so basically that's it. Alright, and the final bullet point, more people needed to support this. It's the same thing again. More people are needed to support this additional complexity across content creation, tools, and processes. That is that. It's new tools are needed, and then new processes are needed, and then new people are needed. Okay, so I'll be honest with you, I read new tools and I sort of assumed they meant people, because, I mean, it's game development, isn't it? They treat them like tools. But no, it looks like, you were saying people at the bottom. So everything I said applies to that too. These are all three exactly the same thing, by the way. Exactly the same thing. So the core is that. That's nothing. Those three things at the bottom, they're all one thing, and that one thing I just addressed. So it's all of those things. Nothing there is unique to Halo. We're going to close this now. Nothing there is unique to Halo. Not a single thing is. Every single game at the moment runs at not every single game, but most games run at the same resolution. They all need work. Every multiplayer game has server work, balancing. Fucking Splitgate does. Insurgency Sandstorm does. All these games need all of that shit. You don't see people, acting as though they're the only people having to do this. And these are smaller development teams. These are giant teams, and yeah, it just bugs me that it's like, oh, hey guys, settle down, right? Settle down, because the big thing is, don't forget, the big thing is how long everything is taking. And it's okay to say, look, these processes take a long time, and everything is very difficult. We don't know exactly, we haven't got all of the inside baseball, but it's okay to say, yeah, look, all of these things are very difficult. But the problem is, the big issue 343 is you have so many other developers who are bringing shit in on time, who are doing stuff in on time, who are keeping their games stable, who are maintaining constant content throughout the span of the game, and you are the only ones not managing it. You and BioWare for Anthem, all of the other failed video games. You guys are not keeping up. You're not able to maintain the same standard that other developers are being able to maintain, and the reason for that is not outside of the ordinary for those other developers as well. It's like you're painting a painting. You all have to paint exactly the same painting. You have exactly the same canvas, exactly the same paints, and you didn't get it done on time, but everyone else did. And your reason is, well, look, I only have blue, green, and yellow. Everyone else has blue, green, and yellow. So why were they able to do it and you weren't? These aren't reasons for us to be okay with the development process for Halo Infinite. They're just a smattering of things are difficult in the gaming industry, and again, I'm sure they are, but this isn't an excuse for lagging behind, and it's ultimately it's not up to me, it's up to you, but if you want your game to fail, then just continue down that road. Let me tell you that. And trying to silence criticism is not the way to go about it either. So I take you back to this tweet from XLR8, and this is the bit that really bugs me, the bit that really gets me. Producing games is more challenging and stressful than it's ever been. It's more challenging and stressful than it's ever been. That's the sentence that really bugs me. That's the bit, more than any of this, that really kind of irks me. Because how do you know? How do you know? I mean, if we look at Infinite specifically, and I know you weren't specifically talking about Infinite, but Unishack is, defending the developing process. So if we look at Halo Infinite, the way they roll in and roll out staff on contract, none of these members of staff could have been there. They couldn't have been there from the start. And I think when I read that, I immediately thought of Halo 2's development. I thought of the development of Halo 2, which is very famous for being the hardest, on record, the hardest game development process of all time. They pushed out of the gate right at the last minute. They were pulling 16-hour shifts, 7 days a week. If you watch the documentary on the development process, there were literally people who had divorces. They were splitting. It was splitting up marriages. It was destroying people's lives. And I see that tweet and I think, no, I don't agree, because I'm not there. But there is no way it could be more difficult than the development process for Halo 2. There is no way it could be harder, unless they're literally pulling 24-hour shifts 7 days a week, which would be physically impossible because your body can't do that. There is nothing that could be happening in that development process that could be harder than it was for Halo 2, particularly when you've had twice the amount of time and a far bigger studio with a gargantuan budget. How could it have possibly been more difficult than Halo 2? So you can't say that game development, is so much harder than it used to be back then, because it just couldn't be. There's no way it could be, because Infinite couldn't have been harder to develop than Halo 2. And plus, like I said, no one on the team could know. As from what I can tell, there is almost no one working for 343 who developed Halo 2. Almost no one. And particularly when we talk about the nitty-gritty, getting everything down, designing everything, developing everything. No one on the team for 343 developed Halo 2. So how could you possibly know? How could anyone from the Halo Infinite team tell you today that this is harder to develop than Halo 2? Because they weren't there. They couldn't know, and it takes like 5 seconds of analytical thinking to pick this entire statement apart, and I hear it all the damn time, but it can't be true. And I think to the Battlefield 2042 development, where I heard that, and this is just hearsay, but I heard that basically the entire team was just completely rotated out, and they replaced the whole DICE team with new, fresh employees. Well, they couldn't have known. There's no way they could know that it's 2042 was more difficult to develop than, say, 3 or 4 or 1943 or anything like that. There's no way they could know, because they weren't there for the development process. They don't know how hard it was. So how can you say that? And the issue stems from something that actually I've been meaning to talk about for a while, and something that's always kind of bugged me. And it's this notion that how hard you think your job is, or how hard you think you work, is more relative than you think, and it's more based on the perspective that you have than you might think. For example, there are lots of people who sit at a desk, and I'm one of them, by the way, sit at a desk, fill out forms and think they are... Okay, I'm not one of them because I don't, but there are people who sit at a desk 5 days a week, 9 to 5, fill out forms, and tell you that they have the hardest job in the world. And there are people out there who I have worked with, and I know that there are people out there like this who work 18-hour shifts every day, 7 days a week, to make ends meet and to support their families because they earn minimum wage. And they will also tell you that they have the hardest job in the world. There are also CEOs who will sit at a desk, and regardless of how much work they have to do, I don't know because I've never done it, and they'll sit at a desk. There are CEOs who will sit at a desk and just let the company run itself, and they'll tell you they have the hardest job in the world. There are CEOs who will sit there and control everything and do everything, and completely be on the ground floor, and they will tell you they have the hardest jobs in the world. There are people who work in supermarkets who have to deal with customers bitching and Karens moaning all the time, all fucking day long, and they will tell you they have the hardest job in the world. They have management who will go and fill out some forms and then go out onto the shop floor and then maybe converse with some customers and then tell people where to go and what to do and sort some hours. They'll tell you they have the hardest job in the world because they have to sort hours as well, but they don't have to lift all of the stuff and deal with the customers nearly as much as the people on the ground floor do. I'm not saying anything is harder than anything else, because that's exactly the point of what I'm saying. It's all kind of antiquated, and everyone thinks they have the hardest job. Everyone thinks that what they do is so difficult and so much harder than it used to be. And in a lot of cases, it is. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I have met people who work harder than I could possibly ever imagine working. But I also have met people who think they work harder than I could ever possibly imagine working. And it bugs me. It bugs me. Yeah, of course it does. How could it not? But it's relative, because that person doesn't know anything else. That person hasn't worked, on the shop floor at a supermarket, and they go to the supermarket and they see someone loading shelves and they think, oh, a conversation isn't going to hurt, but they haven't been there. They haven't been there for the other 76 conversations that person has had to have in that day, and the chastising and etc. They don't know, so they have no perspective of it. They just think, oh, well, what I do is quite difficult, and I think it's difficult, and I must have the hardest job in the world. And I think this goes doubly for when jobs are added to what you have to do. So say, for example, that manager now has to do hours for another 2 people, and they have to shuffle the hours around for the other members of staff they have. Well, now they think, oh my god, I already had the hardest job in the world, now I have to do more. And I think this is what's happening with these game developers. They're like, oh my god, we have 8K textures now. We already had the hardest job in the world, but now it's in 8K. Oh my god, we already, look, we had an online service, but now we got this whole new game to keep stable and keep balanced. We already had the hardest job in the world, but look, it's even harder now. We definitely have the hardest job in the world. How could people possibly complain about this? And I do think game developers work phenomenally hard, but I think it's all perspective. I think a lot of people work phenomenally hard, and a lot of people don't understand how hard the people before them worked, or how not hard the people before them worked. But I think a lot of people like to talk about exactly how hard they work, and I think there are some people who might blag it a bit. Unishack. Anyway, those are my thoughts on that. An incredibly long video, but it did bug me, and I guess I'll see everyone later.